Patrick Kluivert. Before Patrick Kluivert became the teenage face of Ajax's golden generation, his life took a turn that would follow him forever. In late September 1995, he left the Ajax training complex and drove through Amsterdam in his BMW, a car he legally shouldn't have been operating because he didn't yet have a valid driver's license. Witnesses later described him moving far above the speed limit as he headed toward a residential area. Moments later, Kluivert's car struck another vehicle, the impact so severe that 56-year-old theatre director Martin Putman died from his injuries. Investigators reconstructed the accident using skid marks, witness statements, and impact measurements from both vehicles. The findings pointed clearly to excessive speed as the primary cause of the fatal collision. There was no alcohol involved, no fleeing the scene, just a tragic combination of inexperience, speed, and timing that resulted in a man losing his life. When the case reached court, Kluivert was convicted of causing death by negligent driving. The sentence included community service rather than jail time, a decision consistent with Dutch law for similar cases involving young first-time offenders. The conviction didn't stop his football rise, but it stayed with him as part of his personal history, an event he has spoken about with remorse in later interviews. Robinho. The case that would eventually define Robinho's post-football legacy began quietly in 2013 during a night out in Milan. He was playing for AC Milan at the time, regularly seen in the city's nightlife, and that evening he was at a well-known nightclub with friends. Later that night, a woman went to the police and reported that she had been assaulted inside the club. Detectives started their work from the ground up, examining the club layout, reviewing security footage, and interviewing employees who had been on shift. As names surfaced and timelines became clearer, Robinho was identified as one of the men involved. Throughout the investigation, Robinho consistently denied any wrongdoing, but the prosecutors relied heavily on intercepted phone messages and testimony from others present that night. Those records, examined in detail during court proceedings, were used to establish the sequence of events and the involvement of the men accused. In 2017, an Italian court delivered its judgment. Robinho and another defendant were sentenced to 9 years in prison for their roles in the assault. Appeals followed, but each court, including Italy's highest court, upheld the conviction. With the verdict final, Italy requested his extradition, a process complicated by Brazilian law, which does not extradite its citizens. Instead, Italy has sought to transfer the sentence for enforcement within Brazil. For a player once celebrated at Real Madrid, Manchester City, and for Brazil's national team, the court decision became the defining chapter of his public life. Bruno Fernandes de Souza. The case surrounding the goalkeeper began long before police realized they were dealing with a disappearance. You see, in 2010, Elisa Samudio, who had previously filed a paternity claim against Bruno, stopped responding to friends and family. When reports came in that she had vanished, investigators in Rio de Janeiro retraced her last known movements and began interviewing people close to her. Those early conversations pointed them toward Bruno's circle, prompting detectives to widen the search into Minas Gerais. As the timeline tightened, testimony presented in court revealed a coordinated effort involving several of Bruno's associates. According to those statements, Elisa was taken from Rio, transported to a property linked to one of his friends, and from that point forward, no one ever saw her again. Throughout the investigation, multiple witnesses placed Bruno in a leadership role, organizing transport, giving instructions, and attempting to manage the fallout once Elisa vanished. One of his associates, a former police officer known as Bowler, was identified in testimony as the man who killed her. Elisa's body has never been found, and the exact method of disposal was never proven. The court relied on witness accounts, phone records, and corroborated statements to piece together the events leading to her death. When the case reached trial, the public followed every detail. The court concluded that Bruno played a decisive part in planning the kidnapping, murder, and concealment of the body. In 2013, he was sentenced to 22 years and 3 months in prison. His career ended instantly. The scandal eclipsed everything he had accomplished on the pitch. Diego Maradona. The most dramatic off-field case in Diego Maradona's turbulent life unfolded in February 1994 outside his home in Buenos Aires. A crowd of reporters had gathered at the gate, a daily scene since his return to Argentina. But that afternoon, the situation turned violent. Maradona stepped onto a balcony with a compressed air rifle and fired several pellets toward the journalists below. 4 reporters were struck and later filed police complaints, launching one of the most heavily publicized criminal proceedings ever involving a footballer. The investigation moved quickly. Medical reports confirmed pellet wounds. Police collected the rifle, interviewed witnesses, and documented the distance from the balcony to the reporters. Prosecutors charged Maradona with causing minor bodily harm with a weapon, a formal category in Argentine law. The incident shocked even those familiar with his chaotic personal life. This wasn't tabloid drama or locker room controversy, but a case with injured victims, physical evidence, and an arsenal of images replayed on national television. The legal process stretched for years, with Maradona alternating between public apologies and clashes with the press. In 1998, the Buenos Aires court delivered its ruling, a suspended sentence of 2 years and 10 months, meaning no prison time but a formal criminal conviction. He was also ordered to pay compensation to the injured reporters. Karim Benzema. Benzema's case ignited in 2015 when Mathieu Valbuena received a call warning him that a private video in someone else's hands could be released unless he paid. French investigators stepped in immediately, mapping the extortion network through phone records, meetings, and intercepted conversations. As they followed the chain of communication, one name appeared in a way no one expected: Karim Benzema. According to the case file, Benzema spoke with Valbuena during a national team training camp and mentioned the tape, urging him to be careful about how he handled the situation. Investigators later used recorded phone conversations between Benzema and a childhood friend as part of the evidence. Conversations the court interpreted as proof that he was acting as an intermediary for the group attempting to pressure Valbuena. Benzema firmly maintained that his involvement was misunderstood and that he had only tried to help his teammate manage the situation. The case moved through the French legal system for 6 years. In 2021, the court delivered its verdict. Benzema was found guilty of complicity in attempted blackmail and received a 1-year suspended sentence along with a fine. He did not attend the trial in person, but his lawyers appealed the ruling. In 2022, he withdrew the appeal, leaving the conviction in place. René Higuita. In 1993, as Colombia lived through a wave of cartel violence and frequent kidnappings, René Higuita was suddenly pulled into the spotlight for reasons far from football. Police arrested him after investigators connected him to a ransom exchange involving the kidnapped daughter of a local businessman. According to the case files, Higuita had not taken part in the kidnapping itself. His involvement came from helping the family by delivering the ransom money, a role that, under Colombian law, still counted as participation in the crime. Higuita maintained that he was simply doing a favor and had no involvement in the crime beyond trying to help secure the girl's release. The legal system didn't draw the same distinction. He was detained for several months while the case moved forward. During his time in custody, Colombia watched the story unfold with disbelief. One of the country's most flamboyant football figures, known for dribbling past strikers and playing like an outfield player, was now behind bars for a kidnapping-related offense. Eventually, the court released him, noting that he had not taken part in the kidnapping itself, but the penalty for his role in the ransom payment still stood. The episode forced him out of the 1994 World Cup and remains one of the most surreal intersections of football fame and Colombia's turbulent criminal landscape. Marcos Alonso. In May 2011, just before dawn on a rain-soaked Madrid road, Marcos Alonso was behind the wheel with friends when the car suddenly lost control and crashed into a wall. Among the passengers was a 22-year-old woman who suffered critical injuries in the impact. She was taken to hospital but died soon after. When officers documented the scene, their reports noted that Alonso's blood alcohol level was above Spain's legal limit, which immediately shifted the case from a tragic accident to a criminal investigation. As officers reconstructed the scene, they measured the impact point, the speed at which the car had been traveling, and the condition of the road. Witness statements and medical reports were added to the case file. Prosecutors charged Alonso with causing death through reckless driving, a charge that carried a potential prison sentence under Spanish law. Court proceedings examined the details, alcohol levels, speed estimates, and the injuries sustained by the victim. The court issued a 21-month prison sentence, which was later converted into a fine, an outcome permitted under Spanish sentencing guidelines for first-time offenders whose term falls below the threshold for mandatory imprisonment. Alonso also received a driving ban. The legal resolution allowed him to continue his career, but the incident remained part of his public history long after he moved to England and became a Premier League regular. Jean-Pierre Adams. The tragedy surrounding him began with a routine medical procedure that turned into one of football's most heartbreaking legal cases. In March 1982, the former French international checked into a hospital in Lyon for knee surgery. The operation itself was simple. What went wrong happened in the preparation room, where a chain of anesthetic errors left Adams without adequate oxygen for several minutes. The damage was catastrophic. He fell into a deep coma from which he would never awaken. French authorities opened a medical negligence investigation that examined every step of the hospital's procedure. Court documents later described understaffed conditions, a trainee anesthetist managing key tasks, and critical miscommunication among the medical team. Expert reports concluded that the failures directly led to Adams's brain injury. The case moved through the French legal system, and years later, both the anesthetist and the trainee tasked with overseeing Adams's care were found guilty of unintentional injury. Each received a suspended sentence and fines, a legal acknowledgement that the mistakes were preventable and carried life-altering consequences. Adams remained in a coma for 39 years, cared for at home by his wife Bernadette until his death in 2021. Joey Barton, one of his most serious criminal cases, unfolded in December 2007 in Liverpool, when CCTV cameras captured a street fight involving Barton, his brother, and a cousin. The footage showed Barton punching a man repeatedly while the victim was on the ground, and moments later, attacking a teenager during the same incident. Police arrested him that night, and prosecutors built their case directly around the video evidence. In court, the footage left little room for interpretation. Barton pled guilty to assault and affray. The judge handed down a 6-month prison sentence, noting the severity of the attack and Barton's prior disciplinary history in professional football. He served around 74 days before being released early on good behavior, but the conviction marked a turning point in how the public viewed his off-field conduct. This was not his only serious legal issue. Just a year earlier, in 2006, Barton had assaulted teammate Ousmane Darboe during a training ground fight at Manchester City. Darboe was hospitalized with facial injuries, and the case moved through the courts as well. In 2008, he pled guilty to actual bodily harm. He received a suspended 4-month sentence and a fine, adding another conviction to a growing list of violent incidents. Tony Adams. The turning point in his life arrived on a quiet night in May 1990 when his car crashed into a wall in Essex. Police responding to the scene recorded his blood alcohol level at more than 4 times England's legal limit, a number that pushed the case straight into criminal territory. Adams was arrested on the spot, and the investigation quickly confirmed the seriousness of the offense: dangerous driving under extreme intoxication. Court documents laid out the details with clinical precision: the speed estimates, the condition of the vehicle, and the alcohol reading that left no margin for argument. Adams pled guilty, and the judge issued a 4-month prison sentence, a rare outcome at the time for a Premier League level player. The conviction made headlines across the country, not because footballers were strangers to nightlife, but because this case carried a clear legal and moral weight. Adams served nearly 2 months before release, and the experience became a defining rupture in his personal and professional life. In later interviews, he described the period as the beginning of his battle with alcoholism, a struggle that would eventually lead him toward sobriety and advocacy work. Quincy Promes. The legal troubles surrounding him began far from the football pitch in the Dutch town of Abcoude, where a family gathering in July 2020 erupted into violence. According to court documents, Promes stabbed his cousin during an argument, causing serious injury. The incident wasn't reported to police immediately. The investigation only opened months later when the victim filed a complaint. Detectives reconstructed the events through witness interviews and phone data, eventually charging Promes with aggravated assault. In 2023, the Dutch court delivered its verdict. Promes was found guilty and sentenced to 18 months in prison. By then he was playing in Russia, and he did not attend the trial in person. His lawyers announced an appeal, but the conviction stood as a major blow to his public image. Even more serious developments followed. While the stabbing case moved through the system, Promes became the subject of a second criminal investigation, this time involving drug trafficking. Dutch prosecutors accused him of participating in the importation of more than 1,300 kilograms of through the port of Antwerp, a charge based on encrypted communications obtained during a wider investigation. In 2024, the Amsterdam court issued its ruling. Promes was sentenced to 6 years in prison for his role in the operation. The combined legal outcomes placed the former Ajax and Netherlands international among the most high-profile footballers to face major criminal convictions during their career. Harald Schumacher. His darkest moment began on a summer night in Seville during the 1982 World Cup semi-final between West Germany and France. The crime wasn't criminal in the legal sense. Schumacher was never charged, but the severity of the incident led to civil action that placed him at the center of one of football's most controversial collisions. You see, midway through extra time, French midfielder Patrick Battiston raced onto a through ball. As he struck it, Schumacher charged out of his goal, colliding with Battiston mid-air. The impact knocked Battiston unconscious instantly. Medical staff rushed in. Battiston had suffered a fractured vertebra, 2 broken teeth, and damaged ribs, injuries severe enough that teammates later said they feared he had died on the pitch. Referee Charles Corver gave no foul, no booking, and play resumed while Battiston was taken away on a stretcher. The outrage that followed stretched far beyond football. In France, the collision was compared to an assault. Politicians spoke out. Newspapers ran front-page headlines demanding accountability. Because there were no sporting sanctions, Battiston pursued the case privately. Schumacher and the French player eventually reached an agreement outside court, ending the civil dispute. Battiston later said the goalkeeper visited him in hospital, though public opinion had already cast its verdict. Adam Johnson. This was the case that ended Johnson's football career. It began in early 2015 when police in County Durham arrested him on suspicion of engaging in sexual activity with a no-go zone girl. Until that moment, he was a Sunderland winger, earning Premier League wages and living a life built around training sessions and match days. Within hours of the arrest, his world shifted into a criminal investigation marked by digital evidence, interviews, and a growing media storm. Detectives recovered messages exchanged between Johnson and the girl. These messages would later become central to the prosecution's argument, supported by CCTV footage showing the pair meeting near a secluded spot in his car. The Crown Prosecution Service charged him with multiple offences. Johnson initially denied the charges but eventually admitted to some. The trial at Bradford Crown Court drew nationwide attention. Prosecutors outlined the digital trail, witness accounts, and timeline of events, while the defence focused on contesting the more serious charges. The jury convicted on some counts, and in March 2016, the judge handed down a 6-year prison sentence, noting the breach of trust and the deliberate nature of the contact. Sunderland terminated his contract the same day he admitted guilt, and sponsors cut ties immediately. Johnson served half of his sentence before being released on license in 2019, but the conviction remains one of the most widely documented criminal cases involving a Premier League footballer. Quite a list, right? Who do you think we missed out? Comment down below. If you enjoyed watching the video, you'll surely love this one.